Welcome to Mediamelanie TV. Today I'm back to talk about Dexter Resurrection on Paramount Plus with Showtime. Episode 8 is called The Kill Room Where It Happens. And did we get a kill room? But I thought for sure either Vinny or Al was going to get got by Dexter, but in fact, neither one did, and they both got away. Also, just a note here for anybody who didn't get this reference. Hamilton was present in this episode. Of course, that's where Al was going to see a show before he and Dexter were going to meet up for dinner. But the room where it happens is actually a reference to Hamilton. So that's sort of the play on what they named this episode after. I didn't know that. I was able to watch a video on my friend's channel over at Matt and Jess TV, and they mentioned this. So for anybody else who didn't understand the reference or know it was a thing, there you go. And if you did, I'm just here to reaffirm that for you. And hey, thanks Matt and Jess TV for that. But seriously, for a 45-minute episode, this packed quite the punch. Dexter was threatening Vinny, Elsa's landlord. He was hoping that he was going to be able to get Rapunzel into that kill room and get him, but unfortunately, Al did not enjoy Hamilton, left early, and was in a really big rush to get home to his wife because they want to have another child, just what every serial killer needs to have more offspring. Unbelievable. But I love the duality of Al's character in general, being this creepy serial killer who goes out and strangles people, but at the same time is packing all of his New York souvenirs like he's just a normal old tourist dad. I think it's really interesting, but most interesting is they've been telling us there is potential to carry some of these guest stars over to future seasons. And with our tattoo collector, Lady Vengeance, and the Gemini killers out of the way for now, I think that solidifies that Al will probably be somebody that Dexter goes against or is tracking at some point. And Rapunzel's pretty smart. He lives in Wisconsin, but of course did not tell Dexter any specifics. I'm guessing if Dexter really wants to get him, he can probably get that information and make a trip. And I mean, there's still also the possibility that we're going to get more Leon and Charlie moving forward. So we're left with 3 of these big names. Who do you guys think we will see in future seasons? At this point, I'm guessing probably Rapunzel. Still a little bit up in the air with Leon and Charlie, but the way this episode ended, it's funny because when we first heard that Red was vegan, I thought to myself, okay, this is something that's going to come back into play and burn Dexter. When he and Harrison were sitting in that restaurant having dinner and I saw him putting a piece of steak into his mouth, I'm thinking, okay, this is it. He is going to get caught. Somehow somebody's going to see him eating this steak. And sure enough, Leon enters the chat with Charlie outside, a big smile on her face. And I love this because in the last episode, I was thinking like, are they not more suspicious of Red just showing up and all of a sudden everything basically like going to shit? So it's good to know that Charlie is in fact doing her job and got this information that led them to Dexter. Is Harrison going to play along? Is he going to be like, Dad, what is happening here? Really curious to see where it goes after that big cliffhanger. Meanwhile, Blessing and Dexter have a fallout, but for me, the crown jewel of this episode was the way they are painting Angel, starting out with this big board he's got in his hotel room. And we know he's on the case. We know Dexter's the Bay Harbor Butcher, but they're doing a great job of painting him now as this retired former law enforcement who is out to get somebody, maybe unraveling a little bit and quite obsessed with this. And honestly, Quinn might be the nail in the coffin when Claudette calls him and he's like, what? And I thought it was really funny when she kept asking if the connection was okay. And Quinn's like, yeah, he's a good guy, but it's kind of weird. He just all of a sudden up and left. So this is putting up all of the red flags for Claudette. I imagine she's going to share this with her partner, obviously. And I still think there's a little bit of room for Olivia to maybe even be the New York Ripper. Separate story. But even the way that they were looking at each other when Angel was standing inside of that kill room, like, oh, I saw this big guy running away. And they're like, what does he look like? Oh, this big Italian guy in New York, right? How many big Italian guys are there? But they're also wondering, okay, where's the body? Did you see Dexter? And then when he pulls up the tracking to see where the AirPods are, we know Dexter figured it out, found the AirPods, destroyed them so that just in time, so that way Angel literally looked insane when he started rambling on about this. And if they get a hold of all of his notes on his phone, or if somebody ends up going to his hotel room, if they're maybe Dexter's even able to frame him or something, I like the way this is going because I think it's a good way to still keep Angel involved in the story, but not have Dexter kill him. I think that would be absolutely heart wrenching and maybe something we could see in future seasons of this series. But speaking as a fan, and I think speaking for many fans, a lot of us would like to see Batista continue here. So, what a fitting end it would be to this season if they actually imprison Angel or something happens where people are looking at him like he's crazy. Nobody's going to believe him. And whether or not he gets accused of being the Bay Harbor Butcher and gets put in jail himself or not, it's going to take a lot of the suspicion off of Dexter, and it's making Angel not look very good. However, I do like the fact that he is making these recordings, so if something does happen to him, this will be found, and potentially that's where they could maybe reintroduce Quinn, who will start investigating and say, you know what, maybe Angel was actually onto something here. I don't think they're going to have Quinn make two separate appearances if he's not going to end up playing a bigger part. Of course, it is nice for the nostalgia part of it, and I loved seeing Masuka as well. I don't know if it would be completely believable for both of them to come up and assist with this investigation, but either way, I am thinking there will be more Quinn involvement within this whole storyline at some point. All right, before I get more into some of my reactions and vibe checks from this episode, please be sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button. I am also finishing up coverage of The Institute on MGM+. It is adapted from a Stephen King book. If you're into dark shows like this, then you should probably check out The Institute. And then on the opposite side of things, covering The Summer I Turned Pretty, its third and final season on Prime Video. I've also got a slate of shows lined up for this fall that you do not want to miss, so make sure you stick with me for all the TV talk. And hey, if you're so inclined, I also added some new merch to my shop, so you can check that out at tinyurl.com/shop mediamelanie TV. All right, back into my initial reactions from this episode. I appreciated the parallels and the metaphor of Dexter having a sore shoulder and also saying that he's carrying the weight on his shoulders of having to take out all of these serial killers in Leon's circle. Things like that just add this subtle little humor, and I love that about this season so far. And then in a little bit of irony, did anybody else like cringe a little bit when Harrison's showing Dante all the ins and outs and parts of a boat, and just given the fact that his dad literally disposed of bodies on a boat? I think that's funny, but also hoping it's not any sort of foreshadowing for Harrison to step into this role of stepdad to Dante, which I don't think is possible because him and Elsa obviously do have a great friendship. They're coworkers, but Elsa kind of turned down the possible kiss at one point. So Harrison is actually moving on to Gigi. Now, this is bringing me into probably my biggest low of this episode and maybe even season as a whole. Now, I've come around to Harrison, especially have done a complete 180 since New Blood. I think Jack Alcott's doing a great job of bringing more depth to this character. However, I did not need to see any of this Gigi stuff. I don't know what it is about this character. I just don't love her. I don't care that she's messing around and sarcastic. I did not need to see the club scenes. I don't really care that she has this nerve damage that will prevent her from being a detective. It was cute, however, that Harrison said, well, there's other options in law enforcement. And I also thought it was cute that Harrison actually asked, are you good, in terms of asking for consent. That's something I think all of us like to see in today's day and age. And it also just reaffirms the fact that Harrison really is a good guy, and he is doing what he can to not lean into any darkness or rage that he might have. I was convinced that he was going to be the one to end up killing the landlord just based on the fork in the eye we saw earlier in the season, but given now that he is going into criminal justice and he's thanking Dexter for doing that and inspiring him, I don't know, maybe Harrison is not going to be committing any crimes again, and he really is going to be the light part of this whole Morgan duality of light and darkness, the light side being Harrison, the dark side obviously being Dexter and his dark passenger. But seriously, was anybody else kind of like, this whole Gigi thing, I don't really know if we need this. I don't think we even need a love interest for Harrison in general, just with so many other things going on. Now, if this is a big setup for Gigi to be taken out or killed at some point, perhaps by Leon or Charlie as maybe a warning to Dexter and Harrison, okay, I guess I can see that. I'm hoping that she will have a bigger purpose, though, and that she's not just sort of thrown in there for the sake of Harrison having this teenage relationship. And I did not need to see any of the sex parts or like any of that. I don't know. I didn't love it. So getting into Angel, which for me again was like one of the bigger highs of this episode. And I mean, there were a lot. It was a very short episode, but as I said, it packed quite the punch. Angel is a smart guy, and I almost just feel really bad for him as a viewer, knowing that he is on the right track. He is doing the right thing, and he's being very smart about it. He had the AirPods, and of course, he's tracking Dexter's routine. So that way, when Dexter deviates from it, he's going to know, which he found out with the wake shop. And Angel shows up, he takes the subway, and he's looking around, keeping his voice memos going. And he doesn't quite figure out what's going on until later on. Dexter goes back to the location and Angel catches up. The suspense of Angel disabling that door and walking in when we saw the shadows, and then all of a sudden Vinny walks out. Angel's like, "Where's Dexter? Where's Dexter?" And Dexter's actually able to escape. I thought that was great. Just this big ongoing theme of cat and mouse this season as a whole, with the serial killers and Dexter and Angel and Dexter. Angel's definitely a formidable opponent here to Dexter, but unfortunately, the way that he's being painted now is not going to bode well for him. And then what I loved was when Claudette and Olivia actually did show up, and there's really nothing for Angel to show them. And Angel got really excited and is like, "Hey, you have to come. I have to show you the proof." He should have maybe second guessed that, because there really was no proof. There's not going to be any DNA. Nobody was actually killed there. Angel did not even see Dexter with his own eyes in the first place, and they're probably never going to be able to track down Vinny. This is really making me question where Angel is going to end up by the end of the season. Will he end up in jail? Is Dexter going to get sort of clued in? Maybe Claudette comes to him and she asked Dexter for some advice about it, because obviously they had a relationship, and maybe Claudette starts to see Harrison and Dexter as the good guys, someone she could even lean on and potentially work with, since Dexter demonstrated his blood spatter expertise with the whole New York Ripper hook of it all. And then on the opposite side, if Dexter's able to lean in and add more fuel to the fire that Angel is just this obsessed cop who's never gotten over the deaths of his friends and has just sought vengeance ever since then, he could end up in jail and framed as the Bay Harbor Butcher, which I think would be so interesting. At the same time, if Leon catches wind of that, would he try to bring Angel into the mix and introduce him to his serial killer club? Or would it be too soon for that, just given all of the trouble that his current serial killer crew has been in ever since Red entered the scene? But either way, even with the AirPods disabled, Dexter's paranoia is reaching new heights. The concern on his face when he was looking out the window after he got home and talking to Harry about it. Harry is the one who's reassuring Dexter that it's going to be okay. There's no DNA there. You didn't actually kill anybody. But as Harry's also been communicating, hey, you're supposed to be disentangling your family life from your killing life. And the fact that he even brought the landlord there in the first place was very much against what Harry said. And as Dexter's searching for bugs, I kept thinking to myself, okay, could he have put a bug inside of this cat? The way that they zoomed in on the cat, the camera angle, maybe it's nothing. And I've also heard somebody say perhaps all these cats represent sort of trophies from someone in Blessing's family who is also a serial killer. I don't know if I really believe that, but there's potential there could be a bug inside of there. And I think if Angel does have Dexter's apartment bugged and he listens to it, what is he going to think when Dexter is literally talking to the air when he is having these conversations with Harry? Because very clearly Dexter should be the crazy one there, but I don't know if it's actually going to play like that, because we know we have multiple seasons of this show coming. We can't have Dexter get into any trouble this first season. I think if anything, okay, Leon and Charlie find out exactly who he is, but I think Leon is actually going to fanboy over Dexter when he does find out that he's the Bay Harbor Butcher, which I'm imagining has to come this season, right? I was on another channel this past weekend, Movers and Shakers Unlimited with Brandon Troy, and something I brought up that I've kind of seen around the Reddit boards was, so let's say Leon does find out, and then he shifts gears. Instead of having this serial killer dinner party situation, maybe he sets up a kill room within his vault and instead wants to watch Dexter make the kills of other serial killers, because then Leon is sort of getting the best of both worlds. He's getting to see the other serial killers. Maybe it's something where he makes them confess while Dexter has them on the table and he gets off on that whole situation. Because now we know he's quite fascinated with serial killers in general, and then maybe being able to watch Dexter make the kills, that would be really interesting. And it would also keep Prater around for future seasons as somebody Dexter is collaborating with until eventually things probably go off the rails. But I'm also wondering, Charlie is now pretty gung-ho on finding out Dexter's secrets. What will happen when she finds out he's the Bay Harbor Butcher? There seems to be some sort of contention between Charlie and Leon. The way that he's very short with her, the way that she has this attitude with him, the sound effect they played when she was clenching her hand after Leon's like, do your job and keep me safe. Charlie obviously knows something else is going on. She's very intuitive. I'm hoping Uma Thurman will be with us for multiple seasons as well, but will it be an element of she's gonna think something's going on before Leon finds out the truth about Dexter, and she's trying to get more answers or maybe tries to take him out for some reason? Will Leon and Charlie work in tandem with Dexter, or will it be just Leon and Dexter and now Charlie feels like she's somehow on the outside and does something? And Charlie's mom, what happens when she passes away? Is this going to somehow give her freedom from this job for Leon's? Maybe she won't need the money quite as much if she is having to foot the bill for her mom's care. But I've got a lot of questions about the longevity of both Leon and Charlie moving through the series, and I kind of hope we get to see them for longer. But what do you guys think? I mean, now that Leon knows that Dexter has a son, things are going to be shifting, and the way he smiled at that cliffhanger, I'm just dying to know how Dexter is going to recover from this. Is he going to lean into it and Harrison will just sort of play along and then afterwards be like, Dad, like, what the heck is going on here? Or is Dexter going to come clean about who he is, that he worked in Miami homicide and then reinvented himself into this dark passenger? I think there's going to be quite a disconnect between whatever Dexter decides to share and whatever Leon decides to believe. So I cannot wait for this. And then also, who is Dexter's next target going to be? Could he target Leon and Charlie because now Al is off the scene, he's not murdering the landlord? The fact that he was really trying to justify to both himself and Harry that the landlord was a bad guy, and Harry said, you know, he doesn't fit the code. Dexter's doing all this literal Googling to try to find enough to convince himself that, okay, I could kill him. He's not a good guy. I like that Harry is still playing the angel on Dexter's shoulder, his moral compass. Harry's been trying to steer about, first of all, not getting involved with the serial killer club, everything else he's done, and now the fact that he's really kind of grasping at straws to find his next victims. Which brings me back again to the fact that maybe if Leon does find out, Leon will actually bring the victims to Dexter. But I also think the thrill of the chase is something that Dexter appreciates as a serial killer. The stalking is half of the fun for him, right? So I also wonder if that would just take away a little bit of that adrenaline and release that Dexter feels when he does kill, if he's having to do it for an audience. And it's interesting because we got that line at the castle about Dexter and doing things in front of an audience and how that does feel different. Could that have been an Easter egg? And then there's the Blessing and his daughter storyline. Now, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this. It feels a little bit disconnected from some of the other stories, although, of course, Blessing and his family has been a thread woven into the season as a whole. Dexter's getting his acupuncture, and he accidentally lets it slip out, or maybe not accidentally, lets it slip that Blessing was a child soldier, and that's something he had never told his kids. And he did say to Dexter, look, I made it very clear that I want to keep these two parts of my life very separate. And then Dexter went against him. The way Blessing left and said, Dexter, you betrayed me, I don't think Blessing is someone's bad side that you want to be on. And I'm wondering, with Prudence gone and him being so upset, is this going to reignite something in Blessing where maybe he goes after Dexter or something? When I first saw that Blessing came home and he wanted to talk to Dexter, I thought, okay, maybe he saw Dexter doing something on his Ring camera, like carrying out Gemini's body, and he wanted to talk to him. But no, it was obviously this more personal situation. I just don't know that we need that either, similar to the whole Gigi thing. But I've also got to say, I trust these writers and Clyde Phillips to deliver us these meaningful storylines, and they do things for a reason, right? So I imagine there will be a big payoff to this. And I've also just got to say, still, do not think Blessing is the New York Ripper. At this point, I think it could potentially be Claudette's partner, Olivia. I think it could be someone that we haven't met, and it will be a setup for season 2, or it is somebody that Leon knows, and we get this big reveal of who the New York Ripper is before the end of the season, or at least more context into them, so that way it'll set up more of this chase in season 2. And along with that, maybe the whole play from Leon is, Dexter, I want you to hunt and find the New York Ripper for me, because this has been such an elusive one that got away and terrorized the streets that I grew up on. So maybe that's another possible direction for season 2 as well. So moving into next week, it's episode 9. After that is 10. 2 episodes left this season. And I've just got to say, it has been a highly entertaining season of television. Every episode has had quite a bit of highs, not a ton of lows this season as a whole, I think. And I can't wait for season 2. But moving into next week, how is this Angel obsession with the Bay Harbor Butcher going to go? Will he land himself in jail? Will he just be painted as this crazy former cop who's obsessed with this case and sent back down to Miami? Or will something happen to him and maybe Dexter takes him out because he is such a perceived threat? And then that's maybe when we have Quinn enter the scene again to not only add in that little bit of nostalgia, but also potentially help the New York detective solve whatever happens to Angel. What's going to happen with the reveal of Dexter and Leon and Charlie? Is Harrison going to find out what Dexter's been up to playing this part of Red? Will Leon and Charlie move into a second season, or are they going to be goners? Is this whole Gigi thing just a distraction for Harrison, or will there end up being a little bit more oomph to this character and storyline? What role is Blessing going to play now that he has seen Dexter to be someone who's betrayed him? And did Angel actually bug Dexter's apartment? Could it be inside of this cat potentially, or somewhere? I think they probably would have shown that to us because they showed us the AirPods, but hey, maybe they're keeping something from us as well. I mean, I think they probably would have shown that to us because we did get to see the AirPods, but you just never know. But overall, some of the themes this season so far of family bonds, exposure, and deception have been so deep. And you know what? We also got a couple of really good needle drops in this episode. I think the funniest one was staying alive while Claudette is having her noise-canceling headphones on, researching things on the Bay Harbor Butcher, just the irony of the whole, like, staying alive situation. We also got the song Paper Trails by Darkside, which I've never heard before. But this was played when Dexter had those nylons over his face trying to get Vinny in his trunk, and when he's saying how great New York is, because, I mean, everyone's kind of on their own agenda, doing their own thing, and the streets of New York are kind of wild. So people are very much caught up into their own world and not necessarily watching what other people are doing. And also, just Dexter wearing those nylons over his face made him even creepier than he normally is, at least for me. Another song we got was a Danzig one called Long Way Back from Hell, and that was in the kill room as Vinny is escaping and really helped to build that dark suspense going into that scene. And then Dexter destroying the AirPods. All of this was perfectly timed with Angel's discovery and failure. And then actually circling back to the top of the episode, we got a little bit of Leon and his professional nature as well, having this gala for the police officers, the wounded warriors, and being incredibly inclusive and making sure they have the ramp there for everybody. I thought that was great. And being a little bit upset and wanting things a certain way, but also being very kind, asking the woman how her daughter is. Obviously, Leon helped contribute to the medical expenses. So Leon is very much painted one way in public and obviously has this whole other persona behind the scenes. But with Leon being seen with Dexter in public, will that also open a new can of worms that maybe could introduce some other troubles? This episode in particular gives this essence of the dark noir feels that New York City has been setting the tone for, and being this sort of dark underbelly, seedy environment and all of it, and also giving Dexter lots of room to roam and do his thing without having a spotlight on him, because in a big city like that, not a lot of people are paying attention to everybody else. They've got their own things going on, and there's just so many people. Who's got time for that? And again, just getting back to that final scene of Charlie with her smile, knowing that Leon is inside confronting Dexter. Absolute cinema. My kids have been telling me, Mom, you need to say absolute cinema for something in one of your videos. So kids, there you go. They've also given me a list of some other cool slang terms that I should be using, but I'm a little bit more skeptical, so we'll see how that ends up going. I'd love to know what everybody thought about this episode. How do you feel about the direction of Angel's arc going this season? And what do we all think about how Leon and Charlie will end up this season? And again, I'm kind of excited that we'll get more Rapunzel, very likely, in future seasons. I think it's smart they allowed one of the serial killers to get away because, at least for me, I thought it was very early to kill a lot of these bigger names. I mean, I get why they did. It just shows how hungry Dexter was to take them out. But the fact that Rapunzel is still out there, that makes up for some of that, at least for me. So, everybody, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to my channel. I've been on this mission to become a full-time TV content creator, and every time you join me, it helps me get one step closer. So seriously, thank you so much. I am endlessly grateful for everybody who stops by. And I will be back again soon with more TV talk. Like I mentioned, I'm covering The Institute, The Summer I Turned Pretty, and then I've got a bunch of shows on my radar for next month, and I'm putting out a video with my fall schedule. I appreciate you being here. Media Melanie. Clicking off.